Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Water Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed that little intro. It's my little tribute to Eddie Van Halen, who passed this week, one of my childhood heroes. I wanted to be a guitar player when I was younger, and I was fortunate enough to see him in concert. So I thought I would go live just a few minutes early and play that for you so that you could sort of have a moment of nostalgia. So rest in peace, Mr. Van Halen. Good evening. It's Wednesday. It's Water Wednesday. And ballots have dropped, which is really exciting. It's exciting seeing my name on the ballot. It's exciting that people are texting me and emailing me and calling me and telling me I'm voting for you. So that's really exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We're going to talk about ballots. We're going to talk about some voting, some dates that are important. I realize not everybody is voting right away. Some people may not have made up their minds for all of the races. So I'm hoping that if Vallecitos Water Board Division 5 is one of those races that you have not made up your mind, I hope that you tune in tonight and or you tune in a little bit later, because this will be you can watch this at a later time on my Facebook page. And I hope that you see something that you like and that you will vote for me. So I've been doing Water Wednesdays for months now, and I have been doing them every Wednesday. I think there was one Wednesday that I missed because actually, ironically, our water heater it exploded, so we couldn't do it. But the purpose of this broadcast is to talk about the Vallecitos Water Board. It allows me an avenue to talk about what I plan to do as an elected water board official. It also enables me to educate you about some of the issues that the water board is facing. One of the things that I've been noticing, and I've talked to now, hundreds of voters. I've spoken with hundreds of voters in person, on the phone. Sometimes if I'm out dropping literature and somebody's in their yard, I will talk to them as well. Most people don't know that there is an elected board of folks that govern their water. They just know that Vallecitos is the place where they pay their bill every month. And increasingly, they're complaining to me about the cost of that bill. So there's a lot of room for education around what the Vallecitos Water Board does, what they don't do, what elected board members do, what they don't do, what they should be doing, and when they're not doing. And so, that's part of what I try to do here. So earlier when I posted, I said I wasn't going to show any content, but I changed my mind. I'm going to show content because I think it's really important. And these broadcasts are designed to stand alone, but they also work together. So if you've watched your favorite show on Netflix and you're looking for something else to watch, you can binge these and you can learn things that you didn't already know about the water board. So before I start showing my content, welcome. Folks are joining. I'm grateful for that. And for all the people that will be watching it later in the week, or if you Google me, which a lot of people are, I'm noticing, they've gotten their ballots and they're wondering who's this person, or they want to know more about my platform. I'm getting a lot of Googles, which is good news. So I just want to welcome you. The way that these run, I show a block of content and then I take questions from the public. And there's a lot to talk about tonight. First, I want to tell you about a fundraiser that I had that was a lot of fun, and it supported a local business. And actually, this is the first time on Water Wednesday that we've done a product placement. So I'm giving this a try. The fundraiser that we had was in conjunction with Double Creek Brewing Company. As you can imagine, breweries use a lot of water. So I was interested in, one, supporting a local business. Number two, having a business that has to do with water. And three, the beer is really good there. So I thought that that would be fun. But I wanted to show you that I'm supporting local businesses and encourage you to go down and have a beer at Double Peak Brewery. It's really good. They provided a beer tasting, and they provided one of the owners who was kind enough to walk us through that process and teach us about the way that beer is made, which is just fascinating. And it was a lot of fun. So I wanted to give them a shout out tonight. They're not sponsoring this, by the way. I'm just sort of doing this because I feel like it's the right thing to do. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started on the content. I tried to share my screen last week, and for some reason I must have hit the wrong button because I had people texting me during the broadcast, and I didn't want to answer because I didn't want to interrupt the broadcast, but apparently you couldn't see my screen. So I'm sorry about that. I'm going to try to do it now. And it's always just a little bit clunky. That never seems to get faster. I think it's my internet speed, but let me see if we can do it this way. And just as a reminder, while I'm sharing my screen, I can't see if you're typing questions, but once I stop sharing my screen, then I'll be able to see the questions that you have that you've typed. So good evening. It's Water Wednesday, October the 7th. Tonight, we're going to talk about voting. We're going to talk about developers. We're going to talk about the other folks that are running in this race just a little bit. I'm not going to say too many things about them because I'd rather talk about myself, and I'd rather talk to you about why I'm the best candidate. But there are some things that I think you should know as you're trying to make your decision. So let's get started. So first of all, as I have done in many weeks past, is I have started the evening with a land acknowledgement. If I make it to the board, it is my intention, if I have the capacity or the power to do this, that if I am president of the board, which I understand that is a rotating position, that this is how I will start board meetings. I feel like it is the right thing to do. And it's something that I've learned and tried to put into practice as a way to bring us together and center us around thinking about water differently, thinking about the land differently. And those things are inextricable from the people that came before us. So I will read this land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory and homelands of the Luiseno Payam people. Cal State University San Marcos and surrounding areas are still home to the 6 federally recognized bands of the La Jolla, Pala, Palma, Pachanga, Rincon, Sabobo, Luiseno, and Payam people. It is also important to acknowledge that this land remains the shared space among the Cupanga-Wishim and Cupeño and Kumeyaay and Ipe peoples. We acknowledge that we are guests on traditional, unceded Luiseno Payam land. And as always, I have read this land acknowledgement many times. If I am saying the name of your people incorrectly, I would very much appreciate having that feedback. I've Googled it, but I'm still not sure that I'm saying it correctly. So I welcome that feedback if you would care to provide it. Okay, so some endorsements that I'd like to share with you that I feel speak to things that are important about the way that I govern and the way that I think. Number one, the Sierra Club. I am the only candidate endorsed by the Sierra Club. It was a competitive process, and I received the endorsement. That speaks to my pro-environmental policy bent, and it speaks to my my ideas about preserving our water for generations to come, and also protecting against the challenges of climate change that we are already facing. So we have to think about that as we think about water. It's not just the delivery of water to the people. We have to think more broadly, and climate change is a factor we're already seeing. We're already seeing the impact of that, so we must think about that. I'm a scientist. I've spent 20 years doing science, doing data analysis, understanding really complex concepts, and so, and in doing so, as a woman in STEM, that's a hard place to be. It's still a hard place to be. It was harder 20 years ago, but it's still a hard place to be. And I am proud that I have the endorsement of a science organization, a pipeline that promotes scientists to run for office. It's nonpartisan, and it promotes people who will use data to make decisions. And I will use data to make decisions. I have 2 union endorsements, the plumbers, steam fitters, and HVAC folks at Local 230, and the San Diego and Imperial Counties Labor Council. I'm very proud of those because the unions have built the middle class in this country. And the workers at Vallecitos, that's a good job. And what we need to be doing to help stimulate our economy is making sure that we continue to have good, local, skilled jobs at Vallecitos. So one of the things that I'm doing on the campaign trail, because education is also important to me, is partnering with folks in education to try to build a training pipeline, pun intended, for our youth to be able to live in San Marcos, maybe they grew up in San Marcos, train, go to the schools, get the education that they need to then come to work at Vallecitos so that they can make a good salary and they can raise their families here. I just attended the Vallecitos Water Board meeting, and I heard one of the directors talk about something that I found frankly infuriating and just galling. He took the opportunity at the end of the meeting to blame the workers for some of the fiscal malfeasance that's going on. He blamed the CalPERS. The CalPERS pension is, that's, and Cadillac plans, and I just shake my head when I hear that talking point. It's so tired, and it's so shameful. The people that do the work every day at Vallecitos, they work hard, and when you have a pension built into whatever operation you're doing, it's an agreement. We're going to pay you a certain amount now, and it may not be as competitive as if you were in the private sector, but we're gonna pay you a little bit less now, and then we will take care of you down the line. I know that there are some issues with pensions running out of money, but don't blame the workers for that. That's just wrong. It's wrong. So I'm pro-worker, and if you are a worker at Vallecitos and you happen to be watching this, I would love to hear from you, because that was so inappropriate. And just frankly, I understand why there are very loud whispers at this point about the morale, specifically about some of the board members, and how the workers are really disheartened. And that's not the way that you run a good operation. So I just wanted to say that because I found it so inappropriate and just frankly unbelievable. I'm also endorsed by an organization called Run Women Run. It endorses women candidates who are running for office, and I am proud to share that too. Okay, so I've told you that I'm running. If this is the first time that you've ever heard about me or from me or seen me, you may be wondering, well, what do you want to do on the water board? A few things. I have ideas about what I will do as a governing board member that have to do with water, and some ideas that are bigger than water. And I think, having a broad vision where I can bring empathy, compassion, energy, pay attention, which I'll talk about a little bit later. There are some people that are not paying attention. That's what I can bring to the board. But more specifically, I will be focused on providing affordable, quality water, reliable water to you at the lowest possible price. I believe you've been overcharged. I believe, especially in light of the most recent lawsuit, that money is owed to you. And I will work very hard to put some of that back in your pockets. I've talked with several seniors at this point, and they're all saying the same thing. I've reduced my water intake. I've done everything I can, and yet I'm still paying $100 per month. I'm on a fixed income. I can't afford it. There's no incentive with all of the fees structured the way they are for people to reduce their water. And that's not sustainable. That's bad for our environment, and it's bad for the people that live in Vallecitos that are having trouble paying for their water. So we need to talk about how we have, how we structure water for folks on a fixed income, maybe rebate programs, or some kind of program to help those folks. Because I've heard it too many times at this point for it to be ignored. Secondly, I am not bought by developers. I am taking no developer money. People on the board right now, including the incumbent against whom I am running, they are bought by developers. And what I mean by that is the developers gave them a lot of money when they were running for water board. And this started in 2012. As I will show you, I will actually show you the campaign finance filings of my incumbent, where in the end, in 2012, he ended up getting over $30,000 in help from developers. One of the first things that he did when he got on the board, as did others who also received a lot of money from developers, was they put in place a policy that I sought clarification on tonight, and I got it at the board meeting. They put in place a policy that says we are not going to have the developers pay their appropriate fees until occupancy. That's imagine this. Imagine you were going to remodel your kitchen, and you brought in your contractor, and you said, yeah, do all the work, and I'll pay you when it's done. I'm not going to pay you anything. Well, number one, where is your contractor going to get the money to buy all the materials that he or she needs to do your renovation? And secondly, they would look at you like you had two heads. That's not a sustainable business practice. When you remodel your kitchen, first of all, you pay a design fee, then you pay a deposit, then you pay periodically as the work progresses, and then you have like a walkthrough at the end where you have a sort of a checklist where you withhold 5% or whatever until all of those last little things are done. That's the way when you pay for a good or service, that's the way it should work. At Vallecitos, it doesn't work that way. No developer money to cover the cost of development comes in until occupancy. So where does the money come from, for them to do their thing, first of all? And secondly, we don't get that money and we need it. It's one of the sources of income. So I'm really curious about that, but that's one of the policies that was put in place because it keeps developers from having to pay for anything until far down the road. And that doesn't make any sense to me. That doesn't seem like a good business practice, but it helps developers a lot because they don't have to front the money. They don't have to front the money to do the things that they need to do to pay the water, to cover their costs. The water board doesn't see that money. So I was curious about that. I sought clarification on it tonight and I got it. It doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like a bad business practice. And what I would like to know is if there are any other water districts that do that too. I'm going to try to find out that answer. So a couple of things that, a couple of ideas that I have that are bigger than the day-to-day operations of the providing water and providing sewer is, like I mentioned, partnering with schools so that we can provide a pipeline to train folks for good local jobs and stimulate our economy. I mentioned I'm a scientist. There's some very interesting science going on in conjunction with water districts right now, where water districts are putting into place ways to test sewer for viral load. And what that means, what that could mean, whether it's COVID-19, whether it is another pandemic, is people start shedding virus before they are symptomatic. You can spread the virus before you are symptomatic. They shed it in their feces, so you can pick it up in the sewage water. So if you test the sewage water and you find a spike in viral content, then you can give your hospitals a heads up that we're about to have an outbreak. Can you get ready? That way they can appropriately triage the patients, and that way they're not faced with making really tough decisions because they weren't given enough time before everybody needed to go to the hospital. So that's one thing, and the schools is the second. So finally, I am committed to using science, not special interest, to make decisions. Like I said, I'm not taking developer money. I'm not going to make policy that benefits developers because I've taken developer money. I'm interested in data. I'm interested in advocating for the people that elect me, which would be you, the ratepayers. I'm interested in putting money back in your pockets for several reasons. I believe that you're owed money, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. So before we go on, there is a program called I heard it called Special Care and Special Case at Vallecitos. And last count that was presented at a public meeting was that there are over 1,400 accounts that are delinquent. And Vallecitos, the job of Vallecitos is not to make money. It's not to make money and keep money. It's to provide water. And they have a moral obligation also, because water is a right. I truly believe that. Clean water is a human right. So I'm glad that they are offering this service. They are not promoting it very much, though. The service is that if you are suffering because of COVID-19, maybe you've lost your job, you can call and you can ask to have your late fee waived. You will have to provide documentation. The number is here, 760-744-0460. Please be kind to the person that you speak with. They are just trying to do their job as well. So call and see what can be done. Again, over 1,400 delinquent accounts at the last meeting that these data were presented. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about voting. Ballots have dropped. It's really exciting. I've heard Michael Vu, the Registrar of Voters, the head of the Registrar of Voters, I've heard him present about the measures that the San Diego Registrar of Voters, the measures that they have taken for months leading up to this election to try to ensure that it goes smoothly, seamlessly, that the communication is broadly sent out so that no one is confused about the way to vote, and everyone has several options on how to vote. These are the important dates. We've already clicked through September 24th. We've already clicked through October 5th and October 6th. But perhaps you haven't gotten your ballot yet. I got mine on October 6th. And a lot of folks in my area did as well. But I talked to some voters today that had not gotten their ballot. Their spouse did, but they hadn't gotten their ballot yet. So watch your mail. It should be coming. When you get your ballot, you can actually, you can go online and you can sign up to track your ballot. If you want to mail it in, you can track your ballot. And that service is available at the Registrar of Voters. And that's pretty cool because if you have some uncertainty, or if you're nervous about maybe getting lost in the mail or getting delayed in the mail, you can sign up for tracking. You can receive texts, you can receive emails to know where your ballot is, and you'll also know when it's counted, so that you can have some assurance there. I did that, and it's really easy. So I encourage you to do that, just so that you can have some peace of mind. October 19th is the voter registration deadline. That is the last day that you can register to vote and vote in this election. So let's say, for example, you changed your name, or let's say you moved. You'll need to change your registration, and you can do that up until October 19th. New this year, in an effort to try to help people avoid COVID-19, but also again, giving people options to vote in person if they want to do that. Oh, and I should say, you can vote in person starting. I think you could vote in person starting on October 5th at the registrar's office, which is down in the county buildings down in San Diego. You can vote in person as if you're going to the ballot box or the ballot booth at the county offices. Locally, though, and that might be kind of far for you to drive, locally you can drop off your ballot, and I don't know if I can show you this while I'm sharing my screen. Maybe I can. In my ballot, there was an instruction sheet that came, and it showed me 3 local locations that where I can drop off my ballot. And you have to check the website to see when the hours are available for you to drop off your ballot. But that is going on now, and a lot of people have been doing that. They've been dropping off their ballot. So that is something that's an option to you right now. Super polls, which are consolidated in-person polling places, are open beginning October 31st, November 1st, November 2nd, and November 3rd. November 3rd is traditionally election day, but you can vote in person for a total of 4 days, the final day being November 3rd. And then finally, December 3rd is when the certification of election happens. So let's switch gears just a little bit and talk about the Vallecitos Water District. Tonight, the district gave a presentation that somewhat matches this one. They really went out of their way to talk about how they think that the voters aren't subsidizing development. What I think they did was they showed how there is not a literal straight line between ratepayer fund and developers. What they also laid bare, though, is that there is some interesting fiscal sort of shell gaming going on. And part of that has to do with that policy that I just talked about, how developers are supposed to pay to build, to cover their costs, but they don't have to do that until not only has everything been built, but people are living there. So there's a big delay in Vallecitos getting that money. And I don't think that's a sustainable practice. And that practice was put in place to help developers, to help the developers that gave money to the folks that are currently on the board, one of whom I am running against. And I hope that you vote for me rather than that person. So Vallecitos Water District has two sources of income, the developer fund and the ratepayer fund. The developer fund is also called capital facility fees. It goes to fund construction cost for growth, as I mentioned, and debt service. The ratepayer fund goes in is what we pay, the bills that we pay every month. It goes into operating expenses, which most of those operating expenses are fixed. It's kind of like a school board budget in that, you only have so much wiggle room because it costs a lot of money to run the district. It's not like you can have, a $100 million budget one year and then a $50 million budget one year. If you have a $100 million budget one year, like $80 million of that is pretty fixed, and there's not a lot of wiggle room. That's not going to fluctuate very much. So it costs a lot of money to run a district. The ratepayer fund, that's what we pay for the operating expenses. So in contrast to some other districts, or in contrast to a school board, Vallecitos is a publicly owned water and sewer district, sole purpose special district, meaning that there's no sort of general slush fund that can be tallied out or told out wherever necessary. There are two specific funds. By law, they can only be used for certain things. So for example, the developer fund can only be used to cover construction costs. It's restricted, but can be used for more projects later. The ratepayer fund it's not restricted, and I found out tonight that, which I also find sort of interesting, Vallecitos is required to keep on hand in the ratepayer fund enough money to cover 180 days of operations, and they have been doing that almost ×2. And I asked that question as well. So I made public comment during the meeting. I asked that question, at minimum, they must keep 180 days of operating expenses in their ratepayer fund. So that's well and good. That seems fiscally sound. However, they have been raising rates and raising rates and raising rates. And so they have done that, and they are keeping almost twice what the floor is of that of what is mandated by their policy. So they have a floor and a ceiling, and they've been operating closer to the ceiling of what they've been keeping on hand. So I asked why. I don't understand the rationale for that. Why are they continuing to raise rates? Why are they breaking the backs of the ratepayers so that they can beef up their reserves when they only need about $50 million in reserves? Right now they've got almost 100. Why are they doing that? And the answer that I got was that, well, we're doing that by design because we recognize that we have some other projects coming down the pike that that we're going to have to pay for later on. To me, I'm shaking my head about that. You don't, if you don't have the money, you don't plan for projects like that. If you don't have the money, you don't like break the backs of your ratepayers so that you can have the money for nice to have projects. Unless these projects are dire and urgent, they should not be planned, or they should be planned differently, or there should be another way to raise that money. But that's not the way they're doing it. They are breaking our backs, raising money, raising money, raising money, keeping much more in reserve than they need to, so that they can plan according to some arbitrary timeline to make repairs that may or may not need to be done. I don't know for sure the urgency of some of those repairs, but that doesn't sound like sound fiscal planning to me. And it's also the case that there have been I've sat through several meetings now where there have needed to be repairs made on pipes that are supposed to have much longer warranty periods, including the desalination plant pipe, which we will talk about in a few minutes. It's supposed to have a 75-year warranty. After 2 years, it needed a repair. And that's what got us into the mess of paying for desalinated water that we never received. for 16 months that nobody noticed. So we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But there's a lot going on. Maybe you didn't know. Maybe this is the first time you've ever tuned in and you didn't really know that much about the water board, and you're learning a lot. And sort of, I love this analogy. You're kind of drinking from a fire hose tonight. So here it sort of lays out that technically you can't mix and match this money. Technically, by law, ratepayers aren't supposed to subsidize development. You can't take money from the developer fund to do anything for operating expenses. You can't take any money from the ratepayer fund to cover the cost of debt service or construction for growth. That is what the law says. I'd like to show you here that there have been a lot of building permits issued in San Marcos. You may remember in 2008 there was a crash, and then it started. A recovery process started, and you can see here that that's what is represented by these blue lines. And I live in a house. I live in a development that was built in 2013, and there has been a lot of development in San Marcos. It's a growing city. It's a great place to live. But what we have not seen is a commensurate increase in the developer fund that matches the building permits issued. And that's a problem. That's a problem because, as I mentioned, there are two sources of income. There's the developer fund and there's the ratepayer fund. And part of the reason why we do not see a line sort of tracking this upward trajectory is because of that policy that was put into place around 2013 after the incumbent and others were on the board that got a lot of money from campaign contributions from developers. They made that policy that said, hey, developers, yeah, you don't have to pay up front. You can pay once you occupy. So that has pushed down the road our Vallecitos' collection of money that is owed. So we have a developer deficit. Well, let's see. Okay. Okay, I think I've already covered that. Business is booming, but wait, why is there a deficit? Okay, so I'm going to show you some publicly available information. And I did this research months ago. Whenever, as a candidate, we run for office, we are mandated by law, and California's laws are some of the best in the nation about promoting transparency. We are mandated by law to report every cent that we get. If I pay for stamps, actually, I did this the other day. I went to the post office and I got some stamps, and I used my personal debit card rather than my campaign card. So what I had to do when I got home, because I took the wrong card, is I had to send my receipt and indicate that that is an in-kind contribution because the postage was going to be used for my campaign. I have to document that as an in-kind contribution, even small dollars. And this was $40 or $35 for postcard stamps. So we have to track to the dollar the money coming in and the money going out. And it all has to be filed during specific time periods set by the state. So what I'm showing you here is a filing for a PAC. The PAC is called the North County Taxpayers for Responsible Government. The North County Taxpayers for Responsible Government got a lot of money from a lot of different sources. You can see up here, this is from 2012. They took in almost $140,000, a little bit over $140,000. Some of these folks were developers, Urban Villages in San Marcos, Ari DeJong, who we'll get to in a minute, and Seabreeze Old Grove. These are developers. What did the North County Taxpayers for Responsible Government do with that money? Well, as it turns out, you can look and see what they did with that money. They supported the incumbent in a non-monetary contribution by sending mail, printing mail to the tune of $17,693 at one filing. The second filing, this was 10/20. Then the day before the election, which was when this was filed, another non-monetary contribution for another mailer, and the total amount that has been contributed to the incumbent at this time, these are the total amounts, $25,123. At the end of the day, at the final filing that was filed this is the individual's filing. At the end of the election in 2012, the North County Taxpayers for Responsible Government paid over $30,000 to get the incumbent elected. The North County Taxpayers for Responsible Government contains all kinds of money from different sources, but a lot of it is development. So this is what I'm trying to share with you about, when I say the incumbent is bought by developers, this is what I'm talking about. The signs, the billboard signs that you see all over town, they were produced in 2012. They were bought with this money. I'm not taking this money. I don't have this kind of money. I'm taking, donations, $10, $20, $30. I think my average donation is $43. So, and that took a lot of hustle. It took a lot of hustle for me to work through and get the money that I have, that I've raised for my campaign. So the incumbent took a lot of money from developers to the tune of $30,000. And at that time, the district only had about 9,500 people in it. That's a lot of money per person. And that got him elected. And then he, right when he got into office, voted on a policy, helped make a policy, drafted a policy that gave developers breaks. And it did that by enabling them to not pay upfront, but to pay when they occupy. And again, that's like if you were remodeling your kitchen and you said, I'm not going to pay you, contractor, I'm not paying you until it's all completely done. The contractor would just say, what planet are you on? That's not how it works. That's not how anything works. Okay, so I mentioned Ari DeJong a couple of minutes ago, and I show this to you to make a point that I'm not the only one talking about how developers have bought the incumbent. NBC7 also investigated and found that this particular developer has, they say yes, in fact, he has contributed to the campaigns of 2 directors of the Vallecitos Water District. As it turns out, one of those is the incumbent. The other one actually did not have anybody run against him this time and has just been reelected without having to mount a campaign. So I just threw a lot of information at you, and it's all verifiable. It's all public information. It requires a little bit of digging if you'd like to do your own research, and I encourage you to do that. I also encourage you to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm not a campaign finance expert, but I do know when something stinks. And if you were taking tens of thousands of dollars from a special interest group and then magically policies start favoring that special interest group, that's not transparent. And that's not the way that you govern in the interest of the people that elected you. Okay, let's talk about the desal plant. Just really quickly, I try to keep these broadcasts around 45 minutes. It looks like we might run over tonight because I've covered a lot of information. So I'm going to keep broadcasting. I will take questions at the end from the public. This will be on my Facebook page. You can access it if you can't stay on that long. I certainly appreciate that. Everybody has time constraints, and I know that more than most people. I have 4 kids. We're all doing virtual learning. I also have a job, and I'm trying to run for office. So I hear you if your time is pressed. So I will thank you now for joining if you have to drop off. Okay, so let's talk about the desal plant. The Claude Bud Lewis desal plant is in Carlsbad. We get 27% of our water from this desal plant. Desalination in and of itself isn't bad, just like development in and of itself is not bad. It just depends on the way that you do it. And so the Carlsbad desal plant is a very large facility. Vallecitos calls the water that we get from the desal plant sustainable, higher quality, environmentally friendly, and it's and has a lot of positive things to say about the water. I don't agree fully with all of those things, but the ocean is a source that is not finite. like snow melt is. And I agree that desalination in and of itself is not bad. However, there are ways that we could make it more environmentally friendly. For example, desalination is a very energy-intensive way to get water. It also kills a lot of marine life. And as a vegetarian, that resonates with me. We need to be trying not to do harm. But there are ways that we, as someone who is conscientious about that, one of the things that I would be hoping to do when I get on the board is looking at the desal plant and figuring out a way that we can make it a less energy-intensive operation. So for example, maybe we look toward powering it with more sustainable energy sources. Maybe we try to make it less crude in the way that we take in the water so that we are not killing as much marine life, so that we are not damaging ecosystems when we eject the efflux back into the water. So those are some of the issues with the desal plant. But Vallecitos has justified taking the desalinated water and paying the premium for it by saying that it's a higher quality of water. So I want you to imagine something. Imagine that you went to the store and you needed to get some bottled water, and you bought a case of Evian. You brought it home, and you go to open your bottle, and you realize that the seal is broken on the bottle, and you open it up and you take a drink and you think, oh, this doesn't taste any different than my tap water. And I just paid like $1 a bottle, this premium price for this water that I thought was higher quality, because that's what it says in the advertising, that it's higher quality. That would be disappointing, and you would feel a little bit cheated. You'd feel like you paid for something that you didn't get. Well, as it turns out, Vallecitos is in the middle of a lawsuit right now. And the center of it is the desalination plant. And from what I gather, and this again is publicly available information, I've got the source right there at the top. And I agree with this lawsuit. I think that there does need to be an active effort to recover this money. Not only that, but there needs to be an investigation into what happened here, because there are failures on a number of different levels. What happened was Vallecitos started taking desalinated water in 2005. Around 2017, at some point, there was some repair that needed to be made. Interestingly enough, these are pipes that should be under a 75-year warranty. They're not supposed to need repair, but for some reason they did. There was a miscommunication of some kind. The repair was never paid for or never done, but the desal plant shut off the valve, and I'm oversimplifying it. I'm not sure it's just one valve, but they shut down the desalinated water carrier system to Vallecitos. So Vallecitos was not getting the desalinated water. This went on for, are you ready? 16 months before anybody figured it out. To me, that is egregious. And again, there are multiple failures at multiple levels here. And I will be pushing, if I am on the board, for an investigation into that, because there is no way that that should have happened. So Vallecitos is trying to recover some of that money. And it was, they're suing for $6.1 million. So remember, this whole time that Vallecitos was paying for the desalinated water, and by the way, passing that on to us, the ratepayer, we were also paying for that water. We didn't get that water. So remember the analogy where you buy Evian, but you open it and it's really just tap water. We were just getting, not desalinated water. We were just getting regular water. So the bottom line is, irrespective of whose fault it is, the bottom line is we paid for water that we did not get. Nobody noticed, and somebody should have. Somebody was asleep at the wheel. As a board member, I am responsible to the people that elect me, and I will fight for you to get some of that money back. Also, as a board member, I am in charge of knowing a little bit about what's going on at the district. And so I thought, well, why did it take so long for somebody to figure that out? I don't understand. Because on the one hand, Vallecitos says this is higher quality water. You know, that's the selling point. It's higher quality water. Well, how do you know that? Well, there must be a measure, right? There is a measure. It's a publicly available water report. There is a measure that's out there. So if the Carlsbad desalinated water is higher quality as per metrics that are publicly available, then we should be able to determine, looking at those metrics, lining them up along the timeline, that there was something wrong. So that's what I did. I'm not a water scientist. I said I'm a scientist, but I'm not a water scientist. But here's what I did. It took me sort of an hour to think about this and put this together. So I went back in time and looked at all the publicly available water reports. And I created sort of a crude timeline here. And you'll have to forgive me. These are just sort of cut and paste. So right around 2015, that's when Vallecitos started receiving desalinated water. This is the quality. This is a cut and paste column from the Carlsbad desalination plant. And each source of our water, by the way, in these publicly available water quality reports, each source is outlined. The different metrics of quality of water that the folks who are the water experts at Vallecitos have said, these are the things that we want to measure. Here are the measurements that we take. So, and they don't change necessarily that much over time. So I just lined them up here. So here we start receiving desalinated water in 2015. Here is the column. You can look and see, a lot of the things are not a lot, and sort of you have to imagine the y-axis over here is a list of different chemical compounds or different additives or precipitates or something like that. A lot of these were not detected, and it doesn't even actually matter what's on the y-axis. What I'm showing you here is what me, a layperson, figured out in an hour. That would have at least prompted me to ask a question. And I think that's what's important. Not that I would have solved the problem, because the board that's not really the purview of the board. The board is sort of a 50-foot level version view rather of the operations. It's not the job of the board to get into the weeds. It's the job of the board to sort of guide the direction and guide the vision. However, I got into the weeds a little bit because I felt like why somebody should have done this. I can't believe nobody did this. So 2015, here's the column of information. 2016, at some point during between 2016 and 2017, the direct connection pipeline was shut off. Again, I'm not trying to oversimplify it, and I don't actually know if it's just one connection or if it's as simple as just flipping a switch. I don't know that. I can't imagine that it is that simple, but just for the sake of argument, let's just imagine that it is. So the direct connection was shut off. However, Vallecitos was still paying for desalinated water. So if you go down these columns, you can look and see, here is in 2016 when we were getting desalinated water. Here is some kind of measurement that says non-detected to 48. Here's the same measure, not detected, and then 6.2. Here's another measure, 0 to 1.45. Here's another measure, 0.55 to 0.9. That looks pretty similar. Here's another measure, 0.507 to 0.7. Here's the measure that, it's 0 to 2.2. That's a little bit different. Here's one that's 0 to 28.61. Here's 0 to 3.56. So here's 10.19 to 1.59. So 2017 and 2018 was when the desalinated water was reinstated. So if you look at the differences here, what's going on in 2016? Well, the numbers seem to be kind of different. So are they meaningful differences? Are they within the standard errors? I don't know the answer to that, but somebody should. And if if we can't tell a difference, or if the differences aren't meaningful between the time that we thought we were getting desalinated water and the time that we were actually getting desalinated water, if there's not a difference in the metrics that we're measuring for water quality, that raises a bigger question, right? Do we even need to be getting this premium water if we can't measure their difference in quality? So that raises some questions. And I think that's the point I want you to take from this, is that I spent the time to look at this and try to figure it out. I paid attention, and it was interesting to me because I am a ratepayer. Here are some more differences down here: 2.189 versus, here's a range, 029, 0161, 085. 2017, these numbers don't look so different when we were, in theory, receiving desalinated water again. But the difference between 2016, when we were paying for desalinated water, but we weren't getting it, it's pretty different. And if you compare this also to down here, let's see, I didn't line this up very well, so I might have to just do a quick, yeah, it's kind of hard to make that differentiation there because some of the stuff was not detected, but it just seems like, just looking at the publicly available quality water reports, that there are some differences. Are these the differences that should have raised red flags? I don't know. I don't know that, but it only took me an hour to sort of pull this together and try to have a look. And I think that's what you can rest assured that you will get with me as a board member, is that I will pay attention. I will be interested in this. I will be digging into the weeds so that I can make sure that I understand it, so that if something like this happens again, we're not paying for something for 16 months before anybody notices. And presumably, if I am elected to the board, there will be an investigation. I will ask for one, because there are multiple failures that happened that contributed to this. And the San Diego Water Authority, they're not just going to say, here's your check. Here's your $6.1 million check. We're really sorry. It was a miscommunication. They've got a district to run too, and they've got operations to run too. So they're not just going to hand over the water. I do agree that we should have sued to get that money back. And I also agree that some of that money should go back into our pockets, and somebody should figure out exactly how much we all overpaid and refund that money. I think that's really important. Okay, so if you have liked what you've heard tonight, or if you have seen me speak live, or if you have a neighbor that has a sign in their yard and you are thinking that you want to vote for me, or that you want to help my campaign, because again, I will say this, it's a grassroots campaign. I've really worked hard to get every single dollar that I've raised. I've put out my own signs. I don't have anybody doing that for me. My opponent does. All of a sudden, the day before the signs could be put up around San Marcos, they were all up. All of a sudden, big signs that developers bought back in 2012. So I don't have any of that, but I could use your help if you'd like. We're doing no contact literature drops. That means that you don't actually knock doors and talk to voters. We're trying not to engage people for long periods of time because of COVID-19 risk. But we are doing literature drops so that people can learn more about me as a candidate and things that I want to do on the board. We're writing postcards to neighbors. That's one really effective way to communicate to neighbors. We're calling voters and talking to them about the board. It's a lot of just education about Vallecitos Water Board. As I said at the top, a lot of people don't know that that their water rates are controlled by a governed board. So help me if you'd like. I could really use the help. You can contact me by email. You can contact me through my website. You can at me at Facebook or Twitter. I'm not really on Twitter that much, but I do have an account. And you can donate to me at this link down here, bit.ly/TIF4VWB. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll get back in and I will see if anybody has joined or typed a question. I'm also going to take a sip of this beer because it's really good. I feel like I've been talking for a long time, and I have. I've been talking for quite a while, actually. It looks like there are some people that are making comments, so let me have a look. Okay. Okay. All right. Someone named Dark Sage. I have an interesting political question for you. Okay, let's hear it. Each election, I hear ideas like what you put up onto it. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, I hear what people are going to do, but most candidates I have seen either never do what they say, or when they're elected, they flip on the issue. My question is, if I was going to vote for you, how could I, as a voter, know you're going to do what you say? Well, I don't anticipate flipping on any issues because my issues are your issues. You know, I'm relying upon you to tell me what your issues are. You know, I think one thing that you can do is you can, and actually there's a question about this on the League of Women Voters Voters Edge website, and I have a profile there. So you can, I think you can tell a lot about a person by the way they campaign, and not just what they say, but what they do. And because people can say anything, I can tell you all kinds of stuff about how great I am, or all, you know, this, that, and the other. But I would say, watch what I do. Watch what I do. You can look at my filings, and you will see that I've taken note. I've said I'm not taking developer money. You can actually research that. You can prove that. You can say, that's right, she has not taken any developer money. I've said I'm not taking any corporate PAC money. You can also look at my filings, and you can see that I'm not taking corporate PAC money. I am not interested in doing the bidding of special interests. I'm interested in protecting our water. I'm interested in serving the people. I am interested in knowing what the people think, and I've demonstrated that by going out into the community. I'm the only one that's going out into the community and talking to people and finding out what they think. I'm the only one going out into the community that's doing literature drops, that's, you know, that's trying to get my message out, that's doing the hard work of running a campaign. I have said what I would like to do. The truth of it is, I might be the only person on the board that wants to do one of these things. So what that means is that it's up to me to try to find allies on the board, which I might have some, I might not. And if I can find allies on the board that like either the outcome that I'm talking about or the process, then we can muster the votes to pass policy. That's what governance is when you govern on a board. So let's say, for example, that you know, so there's somebody on the board that I am not particularly politically aligned with on a lot of issues, but maybe, you know, he can see the end goal, how it will benefit something that's important to him, and I can see the end goal, and it's the same end goal, and I think it'll benefit something that's important to me, and it won't cause harm. We can work together, and we can figure out our way to get to the goal by keeping our eyes on the prize. I have done that before. I'm a former school board member, so I have governed with people that politically I did not align with, and we worked together to bring about outcomes that we were both invested in, because it mattered, because, you know, our constituents wanted it, or we thought it was best for the taxpayers or best for the school kids. So that's what I'll say about that. Let's see, and be transparent with the average person, because from my experiences on my local town council, very few people are ever honest. I'm sorry that I've met a lot of people that aren't honest. You know, I think, again, watch what I do. Don't just listen to what I say, watch what I do. You know, when you're campaigning, there's a lot of bluster, there's a lot of drama, at least in this race. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. There have been instances where other people have lied in this race. They have lied about me, they have lied about their ballot designation, they have lied about just all kinds of stuff. And, you know, I feel like I'm an honest person. I am trying to run this race with integrity, and I feel like I will govern with integrity too. My interest is the people, and that means you. So I want you to know what's going on the board. I want you to be transparent. I'm not aware of any kind of board policy that prohibits me continuing this type of platform. I will tell you though, if I do, and it starts getting people's hackles up because they don't like being under the microscope or in the spotlight, then they'll pass a board policy saying that I can't do this kind of stuff. And that's just the way it is. So I'll have to figure out another way. I'll have to figure out another way to communicate with you all. That's important to me. Most people can't name the person who represents them on the board. Most people have never seen them. They've never heard from them. They only hear about them like a couple of weeks before election time. And that's not how I want to govern. And that's not how I intend to govern. I intend to elevate the water board to people's to the forefront of their thinking, because it's so important. Water is so important. And to not really know about how it works in Southern California, or not know where it comes from, or why you're being charged, what you're being charged, or what we're paying for, or what the board policies are, it's not your fault. You're busy. We're all busy. It's the board's prerogative to be transparent and push that information out to you and communicate to you, because you elected them. So that's what I can tell you about that. It may convince you, it may not. I will say, do your research. Do your research. You can look into what I'm doing. I'm going to try to do everything that I have said. I'm not the only one, though, that can make that decision. I have to have votes. People have to vote for it. They have to see value in it. So it's up to me to try to communicate that value based on what those people value. And I think that that's, sometimes that's hard, sometimes it's not that hard. Let's see. We need your transparency, your oversight, your willingness to investigate, your ability to take corrective action and make changes that are better management of our water system. Thank you. That's a very kind thing to say. That's what I hope to do. And, I hope that people see the value in transparency, because in the end, water is a finite resource. We have to protect it. We have to ensure that it is affordable. There are a lot of people that are struggling right now, as I said off the top. And it's too important of a resource for us to monkey around with and play politics. It's too important. I believe we pay for water, and the water should be delivered. It should be reliable, and we shouldn't be monkeying around with politics. So that's what I'll say about that. Any other questions? I'm gonna take another sip of this beer. The one that I'm trying tonight is Intergalactic Haze. It's the Hazy IPA, and it's pretty good. Anything else? I welcome your help. I welcome your questions. I'm not afraid of questions. And I love it when you ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, because here's why. It tells me that there's a gap in my knowledge that I need to solve. And I love to learn. I love thinking about the problems that we face just as humans, trying to make sure that we have enough water. And it also reminds me that, that I'm accountable to you who have elected me. It humbles me, because I am reminded that I don't know everything. And that's a good place to be. It's a good place to not know everything, because it keeps you on your toes, it keeps you interested, and it keeps you learning, and that keeps you growing. I firmly believe that. So ask me a question. If I don't know the answer, I will get back to you. That's my promise. I make that promise, I think, every time I do this broadcast, and every time I have had an event where I've been talking to voters. I'm not afraid of not knowing the answer. And I'll tell you straight up if I don't. I'm not interested in trying to snow you or making you think that that I do, because there's really no, that's not productive. That's not productive. And you know what? People can tell if you're not being straight with them. So yeah, I'm grateful for you joining. If you're watching this later after the broadcast, thank you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your interest in water. It's very, very important. Part of this campaign is convincing people to care about their water board, because we all have a lot that we're trying to care about right now. And sometimes the local races fall off the radar. One quick thing that I do want to show you. This is what your ballot looks like. Looks like that. And I'm right there, first person under Vallecitos Water District Member, Board of Directors, Division number 5. I'm right in the middle of the ballot. I would appreciate your vote. And a vote for me is a vote for you. It's a vote for transparency, accountability, no developer influence, no developer money, no developer favors. Trying to get money back into your pocket and trying to figure out how we paid for desalinated water for 16 months and never got it. Why didn't anybody notice that? Trying to make policy that doesn't disadvantage the water district, advantage developers, disadvantage the water district, and disadvantage the ratepayers. So I'd appreciate your vote. Ballots have dropped. Again, I'll say it again. If you've gotten your ballot, you can drop it off at many locations. Look for the instructions that you received with your ballot. I'll tell you right here. So for example, this is where, wrong way. So the instructions in your ballot tell you where some drop-off locations are, and you can go to the Registrar of Voters website right down there at the bottom to find more ballot drop-off locations. I understand that there is a drive-through ballot drop-off location in Carlsbad. I have some friends that are immunocompromised that did not want to even get out of the car to do that exercise. So they said that it was very efficient. And I would expect nothing less. The San Diego Registrar of Voters has been planning for this election for months, and they have done a really good job trying to prepare and communicate and get that information out. So vote. I hope you'll vote for me, Dr. Tiffany Boyd-Hodgson, Vallecitos Water Board Division 5. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And I'll give you an update on how the voting is going if I know. And we can talk more about water. Have a great night. Patronize Double Peak beer. It's really good. And we'll see you again soon. Take care.